When Ed became CEO of Delta Airlines in 2016, the U.S. airline industry was recovering from years of bankruptcies and consolidations, operating with tight margins and extreme volatility in the market. Delta faced all of these, but also rising labor costs, competitors from budget airlines to global giants, a collapse in global travel during the pandemic, of course, and the challenge of modernizing legacy systems while running complex daily operations. So what did Ed Bastian do? He invested. He invested in Delta's people. He invested in its fleet. He invested in airport facilities. He strengthened the balance sheet. He expanded Delta's global footprint and signature premium services. And perhaps most counterintuitive, in an industry known for thin margins, Delta has a substantial employee profit sharing program, which Ed helped design. Each year, Delta employees receive 10% of Delta's first $2.5 billion in adjusted profits, and an additional 20% of anything over that threshold. Last year, the employee share totaled $1.4 billion. Today, Delta is the largest U.S. airline by revenue and captures roughly half of the U.S. airline industry's total profits. It has been North America's most on-time airline for 7 years in a row, with over 83% of its 1.7 million flights arriving on time last year, which is, if you're flying in the United States, that is really saying something. Delta has been named the Wall Street Journal's top U.S. airline, the top-ranked airline in Fortune's world's most admired companies 12 times. It is number 15 on Fortune's list of the best companies to work for. Please join me in welcoming Ed Bastian. Ed, I'm going to take the opportunity to ask the first question, and then we'll select questions from our students here and around the world. So given what I just shared with our colleagues, investments in your employees, investments in your fleet, investments in on-time arrival and overall operational excellence now seem to be smart decisions that have led to Delta's outperformance. But when you first championed these as CEO, these could have seemed like resources diverted from shareholders, especially at a time we're in an industry with very thin margins, and at times like COVID, the need or the requirement to cut costs. The question for you is, how did you gain investor and other stakeholder support or even patience to trust your approach long before the financial results rolled in?
Well, thank you, John. It's good to be with you and your students, not just at the university, but around the world. It's an honor to be with you. I apologize for not being there in person. Much prefer that, but hopefully we'll have an opportunity to do that at some point in the future. When you tell the Delta story, you're right. We've had a significant change in how we've approached the market over many years, and why today we are the most awarded airline. It really started 15 years ago when we first took a look at where we stood. We went through a challenging series of challenges, whether it was 9/11, whether it was the recession in 2008, a bankruptcy filing, a merger with Northwest Airlines, and ultimately the pandemic. But back then, the number one reason why customers chose an airline was price. Whoever offered the cheapest price. Now I'm going back 20, 25 years from now. And we understood that if price was going to be the principal determinant for where we drew our revenue base, Delta wasn't going to make it. So this was a survival challenge. This wasn't just trying to do something to enhance revenues. We wouldn't make it. And we started first with the acquisition of Northwest in 2008, and then eventually continuing to invest heavily in the reliability of our operations, giving our people the tools that they have to use. I'll give you one stat that probably will mark this well for your folks. In 2010, the year we had integrated Northwest, it was a challenging year. You had two big airlines coming together for the first time. We had that year alone over 6,000 cancellations only due to maintenance. So theoretically controllable, cancellations. That's over 2 days of our full schedule was canceled just due to things within our control. We said that if we did anything, we were going to make certain that we canceled cancellations and put a tremendous emphasis in terms of the quality of the foundation, the product we were giving our own people to serve customers. And by the time we hit the year 2019, just before the pandemic, that maintenance cancellation number was down to 60, a 99% reduction in overall maintenance cancellations. And there's nothing more painful to customers as well as our own people in air travel as a cancellation, as many of you can relate to. So that set the stage for us to start the climb. We eventually improved through predictive engineering and analytics, through a lot of hard work and muscle, a lot of dissecting where customer pain points were, where our employee pain points were, to the point where somewhere around 2015, people started noticing, the airline was running better. It was more reliable. It was on schedule. It was different. And guess what? When that happens, our people start to respond accordingly because these are their tools. And we told them it was coming, and when it finally showed up, our flight attendants were happier, more willing to go do whatever it took to satisfy that customer need. Our agents, our pilots, the entire system started to respond accordingly, and the customers felt that warmth and that love back. And following that, we then decided to move into premium service and the quality of the ground experience and the airports that we've rebuilt, from LaGuardia to JFK to LAX. All of that was a focused journey. And yes, to get back to your question, in the early years, I had a lot of investors asking, where's all this capital going? Why is it not some of it coming back to me? Your stock was really low. Wouldn't it make more sense to buy back the stock? We laid out the strategy, and we stayed consistent with the strategy and realized that we're in it for the long game. We're not in it for the short term, that eventually our people and our customers and our shareholders would be the main beneficiaries of this strategy. You see what's happened.
Thanks very much, Ed. I have a bit of a follow-on question as the questions are coming in from our colleagues here. I want to talk about the challenges on a global dimension here. Many companies treat issues like sustainability, in wars, supply chain disruptions, geopolitical tensions as crises to be managed and stakeholders to be engaged when necessary. I mean, how do you think about this complex dynamic of stakeholders and issues, and what can we learn from what you've learned?
Well, I think the topic of stakeholder management is a really good topic. I'd say in my 10 years as CEO, it's probably the one thing that's changed the most in terms of the expectations, the number of stakeholders that the CEO and the leadership team needs to manage. It's different than it was even 10, 15 years ago. Transparency, media, social media, technology, all that has enhanced the visibility of particular stakeholders' concerns and constituent interests. Our strategy here is that we are responsive to all stakeholders, understanding that there's trade-offs along the way between your employees on the one hand and your shareholders on the other hand. I'll give you another example from my earlier comments. When we started the profit sharing payout, which today is on average about 15% of our overall profits go to our people. We started it back in 20 years ago. Delta was not profitable, so no one really thought a whole lot about it. But we were confident eventually we would reach that point of giving our employees the first returns from their efforts, and they started to take note. Early years, the shareholders took a lot of objection to that. Why are the people of the airline receiving this level of our profits? You can just as easily return that to us rather than give it to our employees. And then we explained to our shareholders, and it took a number of years to get through to them, that getting alignment amongst stakeholders is what's key in all of this. The better job that our employees do, the better job our shareholders are going to do. The better job our customers are going to see in terms of performance. The better job we're going to do for communities. And so when you have an alignment of interests like that, that keeps the model together. Now, of course, today's environment, there's a lot of change in the air. This year has been interesting with whether it's geopolitical challenges around tariffs and economic issues, challenges that you see coming through, economic divides across our country and across our world. At Delta, we serve everyone. We have to be sensitive to what's going on, but we can't allow all of the external factors have an outsized influence on our focus. We got to stay focused on what we did. I spoke today to a large group of 1,200 people. Many of our frontline leaders in downtown Atlanta had a large session in person, and they were asking me these types of questions. And I said, we know our mission, we know our purpose, we know our values. We know that resilience is key to a lot of this in terms of how you create and you sustain resilience. And at some point, you almost have to have some blinders on. You hear the noise, but you don't let it stop you. Because I think the danger in a lot of this, and we saw it earlier this year, is when people stop and study the challenge rather than seek the opportunity. And I think at least the U.S. Economy is starting to move forward again as a result of that.
Thank you. Here's a question from Winnie Blay from the Asian Institute of Management in the Philippines. Winnie asks you this: what is one bold bet you think Delta must make today to stay ahead for the next few decades?
Well, I think one of the most important things that we need to do is continue to grow internationally. And international travel is tough. It's a lot more expensive. Those planes you see in the sky will cost on the order of $150 million, just one large wide body, and that's before you get to fuel and people and catering and all the taxes and airport costs that you incur. So these are big, big bets as you think about long term. Delta just turned, this year is our centennial, 100 years old. And when people ask me about our future, because you look around the U.S. marketplace, there's a lot of I'd say maturation, that the skies are congested, whether it's because of air traffic control or just the volume of service we have. It seems like you can get on a plane almost anywhere you want within the U.S. within an hour of where you're looking to fly to. Where's the future for growth in our industry? The future has to be international. When you consider that only 1 in 5 people in the world have ever stepped foot on an airplane, that tells you where you need to go.
Thank you. Rebecca, here in the room, you've asked lots of questions, but where's Rebecca? Oh, sorry, Rebecca. Would you ask the question about, I was intrigued by your question about making the case to the board.
Yes. Hello, Rebecca Ross Savage at the Yale School of Management. You mentioned that when you were first making this push, you faced some pushback from your shareholders with the profit sharing program. When you were explaining to them about alignment and being on the same page, how did you create that alignment? Here at the Yale School of Management, we believe strongly that business and society are linked. Did you make this as a case for long-term profitability, or was it investment in the right thing?
Well, I'd like to think it was both, but candidly, you have to go back 20 years and look at when we made that decision. We were coming through a tough time. Delta was coming out of a bankruptcy. The employees had taken significant pay cuts and job losses. And it wasn't just Delta. Many of the airlines following 9/11 were in a similar situation. And my job at the time, I was the CFO and also head of the restructuring efforts for the company. The hardest thing you have to do is obviously whether it's to tell someone they no longer have a job or tell someone that they're going to be needing to reduce their pay. It's a very, very tough message. And the way I was able to become comfortable in making certain that our employees understood the short-term pain was going to be worth the long-term gain was by promising a payback. and that when things returned to profitability, when we saw their sacrifices start to amount in terms of improved operational performance that could reinvest back in the business, they'd be the first, receive the first fruits of those investments. And they did. And they did. And to this day, that profit sharing payout, which by the way, in the last decade, we've paid over $10 billion to our people through that profit sharing scheme, has massive impact on them in terms of alignment and feeling like they're valued. And financial rewards are not the be all end all. That's not the reason people come to work. That's not the reason people come to do a great job. But what it does is tells people that they're going to receive the first piece of the recognition that their hard work creates. And the shareholders, by the way, if I was to tell our shareholders I'm considering eliminating the Delta profit sharing plan, I think they'd throw me out that same day. Wouldn't even wait a day, because even with the highest profit sharing in our industry, we created profit sharing for our industry, and of course, since we created it, others had to copy us. We are the most profitable airline in the world, even after accounting for the cost of the profit sharing. So that tells you, and it tells the board that we're on to something special here. At Delta, we paid more profit sharing this year than all our other competitors combined paid, and our people are very proud of that.
Thank you. We also have a question from a colleague in the room here. Is it Anaga?
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting about Ed's background in finance. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you so much for doing this. My name's Anaga, also Yale School of Management. My question was, I saw that you held a variety of finance leadership positions at Delta, including CFO before you rose to CEO. What I wanted to ask was, how did your time in finance leadership influence your approach once you became CEO? And were there certain initiatives or things that issues that you saw that you immediately addressed once you took the office? Thank you so much.
Sure. In our industry, it's we deal with a lot of fairly complicated decision making. We have big capital requirements, long-term nature of the investments that we make. At Delta, we'll spend somewhere $5 to $6 billion a year every year in terms of investment into the future. We have 100,000 employees. All of them are paid very well, strong upper middle class jobs. Our employees average probably $75,000 to $100,000 a year at least on average. And so there's expense there. We live in an environment where fuel costs are out of our control. There's a lot of heavy price decisions and a lot of things that are outside of your control. So your decision making skills are at a premium in an industry, and you have to have confidence in how you make decisions and how you analyze the future. So one thing I learned from my finance career was how to make good decision making, and you can call that analytical capability. I think analytics are a core strategic capability that you need to do a good job running not just an airline, but I think many complex industries. And then you have to be confident in your decision making, in making decisions, and also knowing when to adjust decisions as you move forward. And because you make a lot of decisions in this business, and you make them quickly. And every day we have 5,000 flights that start off every day, and whether it's weather or some other challenge in the sky or on the ground, that the 5,000 don't always result in the same flight path, and every day you start it again. So you're constantly tweaking to make it better. Understanding how technology fits into that to make it better is important, and being able to see the overarching top of the trees. I like to say finance gives you that capability. We have a lot of operational depth. We have 15,000 pilots. We have 15,000 mechanics. We've got a lot of skilled workers. We have 5,000 people involved in technology. But it isn't until you get to be able to put that all together and to see how the overall mosaic and the puzzle works and how the complementary pieces are collaborating, where you have to emphasize, where you have to invest, and where you have to make change happen. your analytic skills, which I think you learn with a great degree and certainly a great Yale degree, comes to the fore.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask a follow-on to that, Ed. In our interviews with your peers, they said a lot of things are non-financial objectives, and they don't lend themselves to standardized, concrete things. So there's a level of, squishiness or ambiguity or softness and so forth. How do you feel about things that seem to be part of the elements of Delta's success, like the culture and employee engagement and things that don't lend themselves to the balance sheet?
Yeah. Well, I believe, John, they all eventually lend themselves to the balance sheet, but the
Right.
direct linkage sometimes is it may be hard to draw a direct connection. Our number one advantage at Delta is our people. And I've already talked a fair bit about it, is our culture. It's the strength that we have, the service level that we have at Delta that creates great experiences for our customers. I receive a lot of feedback every single day from customers. Some of it not so great when something gets messed up, but a lot of it great. And the thing I notice about the letters, and it's very easy to reach me. I'm online, very accessible. Hear from people all the time. Is while that plane may have been a great plane or that trip may have been a great trip, they don't talk about the hard goods. They talk about the soft goods. They talk about the people that make the difference, and asking me to recognize our people and to point out the great service that they receive, the unique service level that they received that really stood out, and something that makes them very proud to be a loyal customer of Delta. And so as a result of that, when you think about our industry, all those planes, they can all be copied. We all buy our planes from the same two manufacturers. We all fly to many of the same destinations. We use many similar technologies. We all buy fuel from the same places. The only thing that separates an airline is its people and its culture, and it's the only thing that they can't replicate. Many are now trying to replicate our business model with moving to premium service and assigned seating and doing a lot of things they swore they'd never do because they've seen the success of Delta. That doesn't bother me because I know they can't ever replicate our culture and get what really matters.
Sarah Woodcock.
And John, if I could just add one other point to that, because I do want to tie a direct to linkage to your question. While I believe that, and I every single day I'm out in the field with our people, and I continue to reiterate that message. At the same time, we also listen hard to our customers about what they want. And one thing that's also changed the game for us over many years is we adopted Net Promoter Scores methodology in terms of rating our performance and how our customers feel that we are doing. And that's a big leap of faith. 15 years ago, when we started looking at our Net Promoter Scores, they were so low. I thought the whole methodology didn't make sense. It couldn't possibly be the case. But the more we dug into it, the more we understood it, the more change we made happen. It's evolved to the point where our Net Promoter Scores, basically what our customer base tells me about how we're doing, is the single biggest item that I have that drives my own personal compensation. That is making trust that your people are taking care of your customers, and you're putting not just your company's financial success on the line, you're putting your own personal success on the line as well.
Thank you. Here's a question from Sarah Woodcock. And Sarah, if you could put into the chat here which school you're from, but she's from the Global Network. She's asking you this: can you share your personal leadership style and the strategies you use to stay calm and make decisions under pressure?
I would say my style is fairly hands-on. I like to be involved with our business. I like to be involved with our people. We have 100,000 people, and fortunately, I've been here almost 30 years. I know many of the people. They're very comfortable letting me know. One of the most important things that a CEO, a leader in any business, needs to be able to do is be able to have direct access to the front lines of your business, to hear the hard truths, to see for yourself and listen what's happening, what your people need to do to be more successful. When you get into a job of this scale, A lot of that truth gets filtered over time from management individuals wanting to put their spin on what's really happening. So your ability to see for yourself and hear for yourself is really, really important. When I took the reins of the job 10 years ago, a mentor of mine told me that, you're going to do well, you're going to be a great success, but one piece of advice I'd give you is that you're already too public a figure. You need to protect your personal identity. You need to have an alias email. You have to have private identity, or else you're just going to be inundated. You're not going to be able to sustain what's happening on a day-to-day basis. People can reach you too easily. And I thanked them very much for that idea, and I didn't implement it because I want to be accessible. I want to be heard. And as a result, I get hundreds, if not thousands, of emails and notes and texts a day. But it allows me to stay in touch with our customers, with our people, with our community, with people on the front lines of the business. And it's really easy to find. I'm Ed Bastian at delta.com. I have no other email and no other way to get hold of me, and every single one comes to me. So just another way in which you continue to keep that coordination and that alignment. So I would say my style as a result of that is I wouldn't say I'm in the weeds, but I know my business every single day, what's going on, and I think it's important that all leaders do.
You got 1,000 people just added you to their contact.
That's good. That's good.
Here's a question from David Babala from Kosminski University in Poland. Based on your experience, what is the one most important thing people learn too late?
Learn too late?
Yeah.
Well,
Probably in their career, probably in that context.
I would say there's a lot to you continue to learn. I would say, John, one of the things that you always have to be very mindful of is the importance of listening. When you get into leadership, you feel a responsibility to be on send, to be able to communicate. People want to know what's going on. People want to hear from you. People want to understand your point of views. People want to please you. And I believe an old axiom my mom taught me many years ago: you got two ears and one mouth, use them accordingly. And leaders sometimes forget to listen. And listening gets more important the higher up the chain you go. And taking a step back and really, being a great leader means you really understand your people. Not understanding what you want them to do, but understanding what they need you to do.
Thank you. We have several questions about the industry, the airline industry. And Thomas, in the room here, you're asking about how the business model of the industry. So go ahead and ask your question. I think it's on behalf of quite a few students who are curious about how you see the global airline industry evolving. Go ahead.
Well, precisely that. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. I'm curious, because of the tight margins and given the developments in AI and all the other technological advances coming out, how do you see the industry changing in the next decade?
I think our outlook for the future is phenomenal. Very bullish on our future. Of course, you'd expect me to say that. I know I'm speaking in my own book here, but the reality is that particularly coming through COVID, when there were some very, very famous business folks and some technologists that declared that we were facing doom and air travel, business travel was never going to be the same. We'd all be doing meetings like this on a Zoom or some virtual network, and technology was going to be able to make life a lot easier for people. Could not have been more wrong. I can tell you I appreciate the opportunity to do this with you because of my schedule. I personally would much prefer, and I think the experience would be much greater if I was there in person with you. And I think you all agree with that. Because you remember those days when you were little boxes on a screen and you didn't have the opportunity to engage with each other. Real learning, real opportunity comes when the spirit is together and people have a chance to learn from each other and grow and develop together. And the second thing that came out of the pandemic was that the world spent time locked away. The world spent time buying things. The world today does not no longer wants to acquire things. They don't need new homes. They don't need new shoes. They don't need new cars. Maybe they will. But what they really, really want when you ask people, particularly the higher up you go in the income strata, what they want to do with their investment is to invest in themselves, to invest in their learning, to invest in their experience, to invest in adventure, invest in going someplace. And by the way, that's true whether you're at the higher levels of the income strata or you're young folks like many in the room that are just starting off in life and starting to build. We see our single biggest cohort of growth that we see is in our young millennials and Gen Z, the 20 to 40-year-old population that just continues to love Delta and continues to grow and adventure. There's such richness to that. There's such opportunity that comes from that. There's such understanding that comes from that. And when you realize that it's your business that enables that, that makes you very positive on the future. Now, that said, there's many things in the business model that we have to do to continue to tweak it, to enable it to grow. The single biggest thing I said earlier that we had to do was ensure that we are not seen as a commodity in the marketplace. We're seen as a brand that people value and are willing to pay a premium for. A decade ago, maybe only 20% of our revenues came direct on Delta, direct on our app, or direct on delta.com. There were many intermediaries along the way. Today, 60%, 3x, come directly to us in our direct channels, mostly on our app, but also in our reservation and .com space. That tells you people trust you, people are buying on you, people are not shopping you. Of course, we're sensitive to price, but that's not the reason people are buying us. And we have a lot of analytics, a lot of depth in our industry. When we look plane for plane, like for like, revenue for revenue across our industry, Delta garners a 20% price premium to the competition. And we garner that because we own it. And as I tell people, we're never apologetic for it because we give great service to people and they continue to grow with us. We've expanded our ecosystem. We have great partnerships with brands that you know well, with Uber and YouTube and American Express and Starbucks, because we sit at the center of travel. And they all want to continue to find ways to grow and expand together with Delta. And so I see a future, looking out 5, 10, 15 years from now, that ecosystem is just going to continue to gain greater strength. And as a result of that, those higher margin revenues and those brand loyal customers are enabling us to continue to ensure our future, paying down debt, having a very, very good financial rating. We got our investment grade rating back in the last year, which was great following COVID. And we've got a really good balance sheet and very focused on continuing to generate a lot of free cash flow. This year we'll generate close to $4 billion of free cash, all of which goes back into either paying down debt or growing our business for the future.
I think this is a good question coming off of the point you just made here, Ed, about investing to grow your business. Henry, in the room here, you asked a question about what's outside of the line. Right?
Yeah.
Please.
So I think I'm good. Thank you for your time and being here. I think it's really tempting for companies to just take all opportunities and acquire a bunch, and then one day you wake up and I don't even know what Delta does anymore. So I'm kind of curious about, like, where do you draw the line in terms of this is what Delta does and this is what Delta doesn't do? Because I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities in the industry, thinking about, like, maybe we have a fuel refinery, maybe we also do logistics for Amazon and stuff like that. So I'm kind of wondering what your philosophy is there of, like, what is Delta and what is Delta not?
Well, it's got to be core to the mission, and it's funny you say that because we do have a fuel refinery. Bought it a dozen years ago. So you're thinking along the right lines, and the reason we bought it, in fact, the refinery was just outside of Philadelphia. It was closed for a number of years, and we bought it from Conoco. It was over 100 years old. We bought it because we realized, second to labor, our single biggest cost is fuel, and while we can't go and try to change the patterns, the future of Brent futures and where global oil moves on a day-to-day basis, what you can influence is the cost of refining that fuel and trying to drive it as cheap and as low a cost as you can. And we've done a good job of that. So we've made a lot of money on that refinery. We continue to have it. It also provides us great supply because directly or indirectly, 75% of our entire U.S. system is supplied by that one refinery. We make products in Philadelphia that we use in the Northeast, but we also trade products that we make for fuel oil, jet fuel in other parts of the country with other refineries. So, so that line is a good question. You know, I think at the end of the day, we're an airline. We're an experienced company. We're in the travel business, but more important than any of that, we're in the service business, and it's taking care of people. I had a very interesting interview I did 10 years ago when I first took the job. There was a fellow, Kai Rysdahl, from NPR, came and interviewed me in my office, and he had a famous question, which I didn't know the question was coming at the time he asked me, that closed the interview. He said, he put the mic in front of him and said, "Name your job in 5 words, go." Just think about that. If you could name your job in 5, how you would do it. Most people have to sit back and kind of put words together. I instinctively said, taking care of our people. And he said he never heard anyone be as clear and concise, immediate, and I didn't know it was coming to me. That tells you that you know who you are, you know what you do, and fundamentally taking care of people is what we are, and that's where the line goes.
So, thank you.
This is always a good question. This comes from Julia Masuda from the UBC Sauder School of Business in Canada. If you could go back in time, what would you do differently at Delta?
You know, I get that question all the time, John, and I don't want to be a cop-out, but I really don't believe in going back and recreating any life experience. You know, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I know I in fact even left Delta at one point because I wasn't happy with the journey, and they came and hired me back a year later. I think life is about the lessons you learn rather than the achievements you gain. And I wouldn't trade any decision I made, honestly, because I learned everything from that. And I think there's plenty of things I would do differently, knowing what I am today versus who I was 15, 20 years ago. But fundamentally, the more in which you kind of lean and pour into people and realize that the value of your success is their success, that's the most important lesson I can garner. I'll tell you a funny personal story on myself. When I was young and trying to decide what to do for a career, and I grew up in upstate New York, a large family, one of 9 kids. My dad told me, you're pretty good with math, but you're not so good with people. So maybe you should be a tax accountant. So I guess I'm going to be a tax accountant. And so I went to school to learn accounting, and was hired by Price Waterhouse. This goes back quite a few years in New York, and became partner at an early age, and realized that's pretty boring. People is where the action is, and learn to become good with people. And the more in which you continue to realize, no matter what your field is, that it drives on human interaction, which I think, by the way, is really important in today's world with all the AI hype that's out there. That is where the action is.
Okay, you brought it up. We got to ask you about AI. There were lots of questions, starting with, how do you see AI at Delta? But I know all of our students are wondering about the implications of AI for their careers, whether it's the first job or as they plan their careers, think about it. What's your strategy for AI at Delta, and what advice would you give all of these students as they think about their future?
Well, it's a big question. There's a lot happening. I'll talk AI broadly first, and I'll talk about personally second to the students. I think the technology holds great promise. I think there's a lot of very interesting and exciting opportunities ahead of us. I also think there's a tremendous amount of hype, and and it's not just the technology; it's all the ecosystem that the technology is enabled by, and all the news every time you turn around about the latest $100+ billion investment going into greater electrical capabilities and ground power. You've got technology companies deciding they're going to build nuclear reactors. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. when you step back and think about all that. So I think there has to be a grounding of what AI really means, and I think we will learn over time. I don't believe a lot of the hype personally. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. I believe this is going to be a great potential for the future, but it's not going to eliminate, the jobs, the risks, the concerns about humankind that you hear a lot about this stuff. I just don't see how that's possibly going to be enabled in today's world. I think there's at Delta we're looking at a lot of AI opportunities, and what it will do is it will enable our people to do their jobs better, to be smarter about it. We operate a very complex, very technical business. We basically put you put your lives in our hands when you take off every single day. We got to be perfect. It's not like we can be good enough. We got to be perfect with safety. We got to be perfect in terms of our technical proficiencies and how we operate a really important industry. And as a result of that, technology can make those jobs a lot easier. Technology also can give you better information about decisions. You can learn better from decisions. You can learn faster. You can get greater tools. I'll give you a perfect illustration in our maintenance arena, where we take care of all our planes. We're the largest maintenance and repair overhaul and MRO shop in all of North America is Delta. So we not only take care of a lot of our planes, we take care of a lot of other airlines' planes as well. And maintenance and operations is very manual intensive. People learn about the aircraft and how they're going to fix them, the change they need, and as a result, it's people write down their scripts and what they learn, and because these are people with 20, 30, 40 years of experience that you want. You don't want the mechanics that only got 2 years on the job. You want the skilled learn, and those operators are not digitally fluent. We've taken literally millions and millions of records, maintenance records, over the last 5 years, and we've digitized them. And we're now providing some AI technologies, working with a couple well-known, I won't name their name, but their name that companies, and trying to understand and piece what about those records you can learn about the health of your fleet. You equate a plane to a car. You buy a new car, you get an owner's manual that has the prescriptions. Every 2,500 miles you need an oil change, or every 5,000 miles you need a different type of checkup. The same thing's true with airplanes, except our airplanes we keep for 30 years, and those owner manuals come, and you follow it over decades. Well, we know we can be smarter based on real-time information. We know we can do a better job of providing either more service, more maintenance service, or less maintenance service, and be more efficient by using the insights and the information that we can't access. We know the FAA can do a better job helping the industry become even safer, even more efficient. But you can't do that until you get the information, and then you translate that information into the hands of the technicians. So we need data scientists, data engineers, people that have digital currency and fluency is going to be a big part of our future there. So it's going to be creating new jobs, but we're still going to need the core mission. We're still going to need people fixing planes. We're still going to need people taking phone calls. We're still going to need people with a smile at the counter or on board. I'm never getting on a plane with less than 2 pilots. I don't know about you guys, but that ain't happening. And I don't think you're ever going to see that, at least certainly not in many of our lifetimes in our industry. So the human element will be able to do a smarter, better job of servicing, but I don't think it's changing that. And to individuals, I give you my own example. 45 years ago, when I started my career at Pricewaterhouse, I was an auditor, and I remember going to a company and going through the records, and it was all manual. The computer hadn't even been invented, the PC. It wasn't even launched at that stage. And so you could imagine, I know I feel like a dinosaur, you could imagine what it was like taking something that was very manual and trying to see how that's changed to today. Now we're talking about AI. This is another step in that journey. We've taken bigger steps than this, and I think it's going to be another big step. But what we've always learned is that if you treat it as an evolution, not a revolution, you're going to have a lot more trust. You're going to have a lot more people willing to be embraced. I think companies that go out and announce how many jobs they're going to reduce, and I think that's the wrong answer. And I don't mean to say it's not going to reduce jobs, but it will change jobs. And unless you take AI as a growth opportunity, candidly, it's not going to be well received by any of your stakeholders.
Thank you. If there's one theme that has pervaded our discussion, it's how you feel about your people. And in the room here, Rachel, you have a question about Ed's interactions with people. So let's hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Like John was saying, I noticed it was very people centric, which I appreciate. And I just wondered what your most impactful moment has been with one of your employees.
Oh, I have so many. I have so many. I truly spend a lot of my personal schedule. People ask me what my job is, and I tell them my focus is obsessing on our people, so that they can obsess on taking care of you. We live in a customer-centric world, and everything's about the customer. Everything's about getting the order, getting the sale, getting the new technology installed. And I tell folks I can't fly the planes, I can't fix the planes. I sometimes have a hard enough time getting through airports. But what I can do is take good care of my people and get them what they need. And I think, and I'm unapologetic about it, I obsess on what my team needs to do a better job, whether that's the tools they need, whether it's the benefits they deserve, whether it's kind of how we can take care of the wellness of them and their families and their health consciousness. And we learned a lot through COVID about taking our health as well as our wealth for granted, and what we need to do to continue to invest back in them. There's many things about that people orientation, and they feel the confidence, they feel the trust to go out and perform. And they're the ones on stage, not me. And I really practice what I preach. As I said, I was with a group of 1,200 this morning. I'll be with more employees later in the day, and every single day, whether it's on the planes or in the airports. And yeah, there's a tremendous amount of individual. I think the things that are most impactful to me, Rachel, I'm listening as I'm talking. I'm thinking as I'm talking, is that day that we celebrate our profit sharing. We pay it out every year on Valentine's Day, February 14th. It's become a tradition here. And it's just a fun day to do something fun, and it's become known. We call it Profit Sharing Day rather than Valentine's Day. And when you hand out checks for $1.4 billion to your frontline people, it's only your frontline people that get it. Management doesn't get any part of that. That all just goes to the front lines. And you talk to them, and you see what they're going to do with the money, and people will tell you, well, this is going to allow me to pay off that student debt that I've always thought I never would finally get out, or that they're saving for their daughter's wedding that's coming up in the summer, and this is going to be a big down payment for that, or the opportunities this has to maybe they can kind of take their family or take their spouse on a trip they never dreamt would be possible. Those are the really cool moments, and you realize that you were part of the reason why they're doing that, and the appreciation and the love they share back to you, the warmth they share back to you, makes all the hours and all the work and all the sacrifices worthwhile.
Thank you so much.
You heard that about student debt. You're going to have a lot of people applying for jobs at Delta. Microsoft Satya Nadella kind of famously said, despite years of experience within Microsoft, he did not feel prepared for the CEO job. Did you feel prepared? And what was one thing that surprised you most about being a CEO?
I agree with Satya 100%. You can never be really prepared to sit in the seat until you are in the seat. And I was president of Delta for 8 years before I became CEO. So I was probably as close to the seat as you could get, but not in the seat. And I'd say I felt like 50% of my world changed. I don't know if that's an exact number, but it's a large amount of things, because all of a sudden, people think your ideas are great. People think that you're really handsome. People think that you're really, there's just so much coming at you that they want to know what you think. And you're very popular, and all of a sudden, that's different when you're number two and you're not number one. And all of a sudden, there's a piece of that you need to kind of realize it's not you personally. And you know, I'd say, and I know Satya well, and I know Satya does this. One of the most important things to retain as you grow the ladder and you get in that seat is humility. You know, it's people don't want to follow someone that wants to listen to themselves speak. People want to follow someone who cares. People want to follow somebody that's on a learning journey alongside them on the trip. And people want to realize that, you know, every day, you know, there's opportunities, like we say at Delta, to keep climbing, to continue to get better, not to get enamored with your awards, but only be focused on what you can do for the future. You have stakeholder management, you know, goes to a whole new era. You know, Washington, D.C. really doesn't want to see the number 2. They want to see the number 1. When you go to the White House, you're not bringing number 2 or 3. You're bringing yourself. When you're in front of large investors that invest billions of dollars in your company, they want to know what you think. So the world does change a lot. And I'd say there's a real, I guarantee every CEO, not every CEO, but many CEOs I know went through this. There's a real thing about imposter syndrome. You know, how did I get here? Did I really deserve to be in? So I'll tell you, many of the best CEOs I know are people that didn't aspire to be a CEO. And I guarantee you, Satya is like that. I didn't have a dream to be a CEO. I didn't know what a CEO even was. First person in my family to even go into a business occupation. And the people that become great leaders are the ones that earned it, don't feel they deserve it.
And several students here and around in the network have commented that Delta turns 100 this year. It's really remarkable for any company to make it to a century. But in the airline industry, when we think about iconic airlines like Pan Am and TWA, not to mention the global airlines of no longer being in existence, I guess my question on behalf of the students, just looking at their questions, would be this. Is there anything about Delta's ethos or character that has endured for 100 years?
Well, we are, thank you, John. We are the first U.S. airline to turn 100. So when you say there's been literally hundreds of airlines that have come and gone, and you know, some of them we acquired and picked up pieces of over time, but to get to 100, it's really a statement about our model, about our service model. And I'd say the answer to that is our founder, Mr. C. Woolman, who started with one crop duster in 100 years ago. And by the way, I stay in touch with his family to this day. You know, great grandsons and great grandsons, and I love the fact that we have connection all the way back to the founder. He had a very famous saying that we put on the walls here, is that if you take care of your people will take care of your customers, will reward your shareholders with their loyalty in business, and then reinvest back into those same people. Very simple statement, very hard to do, but could not be more rewarding. So I'd say that is the model at Delta Airlines. It is about people centricity, and I don't talk about people just to talk about people. I talk about people because I think it is the business strategy of the company. I could talk about the planes we use and the quality of the technologies and the advancements in machine learning that are going to make us an even better airline for the future. But at the end of the day, it comes back to the human, comes back to the individual. And you don't hear you hear a lot of companies talk about that. You don't find a lot of companies that really walk the talk. And that's not just true in the airline business. I think that's true in life. And I'd encourage all of your students, as you look at where you want to go and to their future, really think about that question as you grow to learn. And people you have opportunities. You're a very smart group of folks, and you'll have a lot of impact in the world. But you want to make your mark doing good by people, because that's the only thing that is enduring.
Thank you. We're in the final minutes of our time together, and it's been fascinating. So many other questions, but in the remaining few minutes, is there anything else that you would share with all of our colleagues here?
I will. A couple things. One, it may interest many of you to know that I didn't step foot myself on a plane until I was 25 years old. So I was already through my schooling, my education. The notion that I'm sitting in this chair, I could not have ever imagined being in the seat I am today back when I was in your chairs, going through school and learning. So, be very, open to the opportunities. Believe in yourself. I think one of the things that's real important, particularly our younger leaders for tomorrow, is to find some good mentorship. Find some mentors. I think one of the things that got me to where I am is I had good mentors who believed in me more than I believed in myself, and instilled in me the confidence to keep pushing the opportunities they saw it in me, and I trusted them and took chances. Not all of them worked, by the way, but took chances that I otherwise would not have taken unless I was encouraged and given the opportunity to be seen and supported. And I'd say, the other thing is, many of you will be facing decisions about where to go with your careers, where to go with your future. Be careful about following the money. I tell I've got 4 children. My youngest just graduated from the University of Georgia, and I have the same speech I had with all of them. Again, I'm going to feel like a real dinosaur. Back when I graduated university, I went to a small school in Western New York, St. Bonaventure University, and I became an accountant. And at that time, there were 8 big accounting firms, public accounting firms. And I knew I was going to New York City. I wanted to work in New York. And interestingly enough, they all had the same model. They all had basically the same starting salaries, which, by the way, was $15,000 a year. You can imagine starting living in New York at $15,000 a year. This is 1980. I took the job that paid me $12,000 a year because I had confidence that the firm that could offer me that understood that they were bringing me more than dollars. They were bringing me experience. They were bringing me a clientele like none other. There's so much more depth to what you're going to do, who you start off with, who you surround yourself with, and get your career going than where your paycheck is coming from. There'll be opportunity for you to make money in the world, and I know you got bills to pay. Don't short circuit yourself, and consider that those opportunities. How you get your pay these days and the rewards are not monetarily. It's about being in the right position and knowing that you're at Yale and you've invested in yourselves to get into a great environment. Hopefully you understand that.
And I want to end before thanking you with the story. So my wife and I will celebrate 40 years being married next year. And all these years, I'm the one who has said, we got to get to the airport 2 hours early. You never know about traffic and bridges. And she's like, we're going to the airport way too early. We're going to go way too early. And within the past couple of months, she says, we need to get to the airport an extra hour early. And I said, why? She says, I want to get to the Delta One lounge.
She's smart.
Well, we cannot thank you enough, Ed, for spending an hour with us and imparting those insights and advice and answering the questions. Thank you so much. Very, very valuable. So please join me in thanking.
Thank you.